There comes a point in the soul where the chase becomes exhausting. You run, not with purpose, but with panic, not towards meaning, but away from mercy, and all the while you believe you're moving forward. But in truth, you're circling the same fears. Running from God feels like freedom at first, like independence, like strength, but it slowly begins to feel like silence, then emptiness, then weight. Because what you call freedom away from God is really a prison with no walls, no chains, just a slow fading of peace. You try to escape the voice, but you forget it's not a voice of condemnation. It's a voice that called you before the womb, a voice that whispered your name before time began, and yet you run, not because you hate him, but because you fear what he might require. You fear surrender. You fear change. You fear that if you stop running, he'll break you. But what if? What if when you stop running, he doesn't break you, he rebuilds you? What if he's not chasing you to punish you, but to walk with you? Because he never asked you to sprint in your own strength. He asked you to walk with him in the cool of the day. He's not behind you with wrath. He's beside you with wisdom, waiting, patient, not pacing angrily, but pacing lovingly. You think surrender is loss, but surrender to God is the beginning of true alignment, because the greatest peace is not found in escape. It's found in return to the source, return to the shepherd. Return to the still waters. When you stop running from him, you start running with him. Your pace changes, not hurried, not anxious, but deliberate, stable, secure. Running with God is not a race to impress him. It's a rhythm to stay close to him. You're no longer out of breath. You breathe in step with the Spirit. You're no longer lost in your thoughts. You're found in his word, and suddenly you realize the race of life was never about distance. It was about direction, and the moment you turned around, you didn't find judgment, you found open arms. You found a father, you found a friend, you found a leader who walks ahead, not to drag you, but to guide you. This is not the path of the perfect. It's the path of the willing, not those who never fall, but those who keep walking anyway. And now, your past no longer owns you, because the one you now walk with already paid for every step you misstepped. He didn't call you to run from guilt. He called you to run with grace. So stop running in fear. Start running with faith, because when you run with God, you don't run to victory. You run from it because it's already won. It's already finished. And now you simply follow the one who never stopped walking toward you. Even when you ran the other way, it usually starts quietly. Not with rebellion, but with resistance, a subtle tension in the soul, a slow drift away from prayer, a quiet avoidance of stillness, because somewhere deep inside we believe God is going to ask for everything. So we give him nothing. We think surrender means suffering. We think obedience means losing ourselves. We think if we let him too close, he'll take what we're not ready to release, so we keep our distance. We keep parts of our heart locked away. We say we trust him, but only with what we can control. We create a version of faith that keeps God close enough to comfort, but far enough not to interfere. And we call it wisdom, we call it balance, we call it working on our relationship with God. But it's not relationship, it's fear disguised as logic, because behind all our spiritual excuses is the belief that his presence will cost us too much. Too much freedom, too much comfort, too much control. We fear he will demand everything, so we run. Even if we never admit we're running, we fill our lives with noise, so we never have to hear his whisper. We drown in busyness, so we never have to face his stillness. We run not with our feet, but with our focus, with our schedules, with our silence, because if we slow down, he might speak, and if he speaks, we might have to change. But here's the truth we've forgotten. His presence doesn't burden you, it frees you. You were never designed to carry this much. Not the pressure, not the performance, not the perfection. You were made to walk with him, not impress him. His presence doesn't demand something from you, it gives something to you. Peace, clarity, strength, rest. We've believed a lie, that God's presence equals pressure. But pressure is what you feel when you're running from Him, not when you're resting in Him. You say, God, I'm tired. He says, then stop running. You say, God, I'm confused. He says, then come closer. You say, God, I'm not ready to give this up. He says, then let me carry what you can't. This is the heart of the gospel, not that you climb to reach God, but that He came down to carry you. And yet, we keep hiding, we keep performing, we keep pretending we're fine, as we quietly fall apart inside. Because deep down, we still think God wants perfection, when all He's ever wanted was proximity. You can't outrun His love, but you can delay your healing, because running doesn't protect you. It only postpones your peace. And the longer you run, the heavier life becomes. You carry decisions you were never meant to carry alone. You fight battles you were never meant to fight in isolation. You make plans that exhaust you, because they were never aligned with His voice. You don't need to try harder, you need to draw nearer. This is not about striving, it's about surrender, because God doesn't meet you at the finish line. He walks beside you the whole way. He is not impressed with your speed. He is present in your slowness, in your weakness, in your waiting. You run thinking He'll demand your all, but what He's really asking for is your heart, the honest version, the messy one, the uncertain one. Because the truth is, He can do more with your surrender than you can do with your strength. You've been trying to hold it all together. He's been waiting to hold you. You've been running to avoid pain. He's been calling you to release it. You've been trying to figure it all out. He's been whispering, you don't have to. You were never created to carry the weight of the world. You were created to walk with the one who holds the world in His hands. So no, His presence does not demand too much. It frees you from the burden you were never meant to carry in the first place. We don't run because we hate God. We run because we don't know Him. Not really. We know about Him, we know the stories, we've heard the sermons, we've memorized the verses, but knowledge is not the same as understanding, and what we don't understand, we fear, because if you see Him as a judge only, you'll spend your life trying not to be condemned. If you see Him as a taskmaster, you'll reduce your faith to performance. If you see Him as distant, you'll assume He's watching, but not involved, and if you think He's harsh, you'll never come close. You'll stay at a distance not because you don't want Him, but because you're afraid of what He might do with you. So we hide, not out of pride, but out of confusion, because somewhere along the way we were taught that holiness means unapproachable, that divinity means cold, that purity means perfection, and perfection means distance. So we created this image of God, one that watches more than He walks, one that demands more than He delivers, one that's more interested in our behavior than our brokenness. But that's not who He is. He is holy. Yes, He is just. Yes, but He is not unloving. He is not absent. He does not stand far off with arms crossed. He steps close with arms open. We fear a master, but He has come as a father. A father doesn't demand you earn His presence. A father desires to be your presence. A father doesn't require perfection to embrace. He embraces to lead you into wholeness. He doesn't wait for you to fix yourself. He meets you in the fixing. This is where the misunderstanding begins. We think His correction is rejection. We think His silence is absence. We think His delay is punishment. But when a father disciplines, it's not to destroy, it's to develop. When a father waits, it's not indifference, it's intentionality. But we don't know this if we only know about Him. We only know this when we walk with Him. This is why we run, not because we're rebellious, but because we misunderstood His heart. We assumed He was like others. We projected human traits onto a divine nature. We thought He was angry like them, distant like them, impatient like them, but He is not like them. He is not like us. He is patient when we are panicked. He is gentle when we are jaded. He is steadfast when we are scattered. He is a father, not a tyrant, not a dictator, not a cold deity demanding blind devotion, but a present, loving, gracious, and near Father. He doesn't run away when you fall. He runs toward you. He doesn't condemn you for struggling. He draws near in the struggle, and when you finally stop running, you don't hear shouting, you hear your name spoken softly, lovingly, personally. He doesn't say, "Where have you been?" He says, "I've been waiting." This is why the prodigal came home, not because he feared punishment, but because he remembered the nature of the Father. It was the memory of goodness, not the fear of judgment, that pulled him out of the pit, and when he returned he wasn't scolded, he was embraced, because the Father isn't watching the clock, he's watching the road. Waiting for the moment you stop running so he can run to you. You feared him as a master, but he's been reaching for you as a father. You thought he was angry. He was grieving. You thought he was punishing. He was preparing. You thought he had given up. He was holding space. So no, avoidance isn't rebellion in disguise. It's confusion. It's pain. It's misunderstanding of the one who knit you together. But he's not offended by your fear. He's not surprised by your hiding. He's just ready to replace the lie with the truth. You don't have to run from him. You were made to run to him, not as a slave afraid of a whip, but as a child who knows the way home. Because when you truly see him, you'll stop avoiding, you'll start approaching, and the God you feared from a distance will become the Father you trust in the silence. You thought distance would bring relief. But it brought resistance, not from him, from life itself, because grace is not just forgiveness, it's oxygen, it's alignment, it's the invisible strength that holds you steady when nothing else can. And when you run from the giver of grace, you begin to breathe in anxiety instead. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in slowly, quietly, subtly at first. It just feels like pressure. A little more weight on your shoulders, a little more noise in your head. You say, "I just need more time. I just need a break. I just need to figure it out on my own." But time doesn't bring answers when you're disconnected from the source. Breaks don't bring healing when you've unplugged from presence. And trying to figure it out alone only leads you deeper into exhaustion. Because life without grace is like running uphill with no breath. Every step feels heavier than the last, and you start wondering, why am I so tired? Why am I so frustrated? Why does nothing seem to satisfy anymore? It's not punishment, it's absence, the absence of peace, the absence of clarity, the absence of strength that was never supposed to come from you in the first place. You think the pain is God's anger, but it's simply gravity without grace. You were never built to carry your own soul. You were never made to lead yourself through the wilderness. You were designed to walk in step with the one who carries what you can't, and when you leave him behind, the weight doesn't leave with you. It finds you, it finds your mind, it finds your relationships, it finds your purpose, and what used to feel light now feels crushing. What used to bring joy now brings fatigue. What used to feel clear now feels cloudy. Not because God is punishing you, but because life apart from him was never supposed to work. Like a branch severed from the vine, it doesn't die immediately. It just stops growing, slowly, silently. But certainly, and that's what happens when you run, you still look alive, still show up, still smile, but deep down, you know you've lost your rhythm, your breath, your ease, and you can trace it back to the moment you drifted. Not in defiance, but in distraction. You stopped checking in, you stopped listening, you started doing more than you were meant to, and you started carrying what was never yours to carry. You said, "I've got this," but your soul whispered, "No, we don't," and now the weight has become normal. You've learned to function tired, to smile anxious, to lead while empty, but it was never meant to be this way. He never said the road would be easy, but he promised you wouldn't walk it alone. And the further you walk without him, the more life feels like labor without fruit, effort without ease, movement without meaning. You've mistaken your strength for survival, but survival isn't success, because surviving without God is slower dying. It's the slow erosion of joy, the gradual breakdown of identity. The invisible emptiness of a soul that forgot how to rest. But rest isn't found in sleep. It's found in surrender, not in doing less, but in being with him more. Because when he walks with you, the weight shifts. The fog lifts, the grace returns, not just to cover your sin, but to carry your soul. This is why the further you run from him, the heavier it gets. Not because he's chasing you with judgment, but because you're carrying what you were meant to hand over. Because grace isn't just a feeling, it's a flow, and when the flow is cut off, the soul suffocates. So if your heart feels heavy today, don't ask what you're doing wrong. Ask who you've stopped walking with. You were never meant to carry this alone. He was always meant to carry it with you. But he won't force himself into a race you're determined to run without him. He'll wait. He'll whisper. He'll let the weight speak louder than his silence. Not to punish, but to remind you, the life that once felt light was never light because of your strength. It was light because of his grace. The weight didn't break you, but it slowed you down. The silence didn't destroy you, but it made you listen. The exhaustion didn't end you, but it exposed you, and now you're standing still, not because you figured it all out, but because your strength finally ran out. You're tired, not just physically, but soul tired, the kind of tired that no nap can fix, the kind of tired that comes from pretending too long. You've tried everything, more effort, more distraction, more independence. But none of it fixed the heaviness, so now you stop, not out of wisdom, but out of surrender. You stop running, and for the first time in a long time you don't hear shame, you hear stillness, you don't feel punishment. You feel presence because stopping doesn't mean failure. It means awareness. It means finally realizing you weren't made to run away, you were made to return. When you stop escaping, you start embracing. Not the pain, but the truth, not the past, but the person. You begin to feel again, to breathe again, to trust again, and the father you thought would be angry is already running toward you. He doesn't ask why you ran. He doesn't demand a reason. He doesn't hand you a list of everything you did wrong. He embraces you fully, immediately, without hesitation, because grace doesn't wait for your explanation. It wraps itself around your return. You expected judgment. You received joy. You expected distance. You received a robe, a ring, a feast. Because to God, the moment you stop running is the moment heaven celebrates, and in that embrace something shifts. Your pace changes, your posture changes, your pressure lifts, because now you're not running from something, you're walking with someone. No more hiding, no more spinning in circles, no more surviving on fumes. Now you move with rhythm, with purpose, with alignment, not rushing, not striving, not proving, just walking, just receiving, just being. It feels foreign at first. Peace always does when chaos has been your normal. But the more you walk with him, the more your pace becomes holy, slow, still, sure. You stop comparing, you stop competing. You stop calculating your worth based on performance, because now you're defined by proximity, not productivity. You realize that this embrace, this moment of return, was never just the end of the run. It was the beginning of a walk, and walking with him doesn't mean you never stumble. It means you never stumble alone. It doesn't mean life gets easier, it means grace gets deeper. It doesn't mean all the questions vanish. It means his presence becomes louder than your doubts. The embrace doesn't erase your past, but it rewrites your future. It says, you are still mine, you are still called, you are still loved, even after the running, even after the silence, even after the mess. And as you stay in that embrace, something changes inside you. You begin to trust again. You begin to breathe again. You begin to walk in rhythm with heaven again. And this time, you're not rushing to earn anything. You're walking because you've already been accepted. You're not trying to impress him. You're letting him impress truth upon you. You're not chasing blessings. You're walking with the blesser. And your pace, your holy, quiet, steady pace, becomes your protection. Because when you run, you miss things, you outrun wisdom, you outrun discernment, you outrun conviction, but when you walk with him, you see clearly, you hear softly, you move intentionally, not because you've arrived, But because you've returned, and in returning you've found the embrace that makes every step finally make sense. The embrace changed your direction, but the walk changed your identity. You stopped being a stranger. You started remembering who you were, not a mistake, not a failure, not just a survivor of your decisions, but a child, a son, a daughter, still his. You were never called to perform. You were called to participate, not as a worker in a cold system, but as a co-heir in a living kingdom. This isn't about earning your place. It's about walking in the place that was always yours. Because when you walk with God, He doesn't hand you tasks, He holds your hand. He doesn't command you from a distance. He communes with you in the quiet. You were never meant to just serve Him from afar. You were made to move with Him, in rhythm, in purpose, in step, not as a soldier begging for instructions, but as a son learning the heart of his Father. This changes everything. You don't run for approval. You run with assurance. You don't serve to be accepted. You serve because you are accepted. You're not on a spiritual treadmill hoping to be noticed. You're on a journey of transformation, side by side with the one who called you, because God didn't adopt you for labor. He adopted you for love. And yes, there is work to do. Yes, there is a calling. Yes, there is a harvest, but you don't chase it alone. You don't carry the weight of it alone. You don't even understand it fully without Him. To run for God without running with Him is to exhaust yourself in good things while missing the best thing. That's how religion becomes noise. That's how ministry becomes burnout. That's how service turns into striving. But companionship brings clarity, because when you're with Him, you begin to reflect Him. You begin to walk in what He carries. You gain access to His vision, to His peace, to His wisdom. You're no longer working to be close. You're working from closeness. You're no longer trying to please Him with deeds. You're letting Him shape your deeds through relationship. You pray, not to be seen, but to stay connected. You obey, not to avoid punishment, but to remain in step with purpose. You give, not to gain favor, but because your heart has learned generosity from walking next to the giver himself. This is what happens when you stop running alone, when you stop treating Him like a boss and start knowing Him as a father. You stop asking, "What do I need to do to be enough?" and you start saying, "Thank you that I already am." Now, your running is no longer frantic. It's focused. It's no longer desperate. It's deliberate. You're not chasing identity anymore. You're living from it. You're not running with fear behind you. You're running with a Father beside you. And when you stumble, because you will, He doesn't shout. He steadies you. When you slow down, He doesn't accuse. He adjusts the pace, because this isn't about how fast you move. It's about who you move with. He's not looking for spiritual performers. He's looking for walking partners, listening hearts, available vessels, because the kingdom was never built by those who outran everyone else. It was built by those who walked with God until their feet and their faith moved in the same direction. This is the life you were always meant to live, not a treadmill of guilt, but a journey of grace, not a career in religion, but a walk of restoration. And now you realize your Father didn't want your hustle. He wanted your heart. You thought He needed your labor, but He just wanted your love. So no, you're not a servant begging for a job. You're a son returning home and discovering the house was always yours. Now you run, but you don't run to prove. You run because you belong. And running with God feels nothing like running for Him, because this is not a mission without intimacy. This is not a schedule without presence. This is not a calling without communion. This is companionship. This is co-laboring. This is what you were born for.